Maya Rodriguez stood at the entrance of Lincoln High School, her backpack slung over one shoulder and a paper schedule crumpled in her sweaty palm. The morning air was cold, and she could see her breath forming small clouds as she exhaled. Students rushed past her, chatting loudly with friends they had known for years. Maya watched them with careful eyes, noting how they moved in groups and avoided certain areas of the courtyard. This was her 8th school in 4 years. Her father, Sergeant Rodriguez, had been transferred again, and once more Maya found herself starting over in a new place with new faces and new rules to learn. She had gotten used to being the outsider, but it never got easier. The hallways of Lincoln High were wider than her last school, with bright fluorescent lights that made everything look harsh and pale. Students filled every space, talking, laughing, and slamming lockers shut. Maya kept her head down and followed the room numbers on the walls until she found her first class. Mrs. Patterson, the English teacher, introduced Maya to the class with a tired smile. "Everyone, we have a new student joining us today. This is Maya Rodriguez. Maya, would you like to tell us something about yourself?" Maya stood beside the teacher's desk and looked out at 30 pairs of curious eyes. Some students seemed friendly, others looked bored, and a few in the back row were already whispering to each other. She had learned to keep these introductions short and simple. "I'm Maya. My family just moved here from Texas. My dad is in the military." She paused, wondering if she should say more, then decided against it. "That's all." Mrs. Patterson pointed to an empty desk in the middle of the room. "You can sit there, Maya. We're reading chapter 12 today." As Maya walked to her seat, she heard a boy in the back row whisper loudly enough for others to hear. "Another military brat. Wonder how long this one will last." A few students snickered. Maya pretended not to hear and opened her textbook to the correct page. The morning classes passed slowly. Maya took careful notes and answered questions when called upon, but she didn't volunteer to speak. During breaks between classes, she observed the social groups forming and reforming in the hallways. There were the popular kids who owned the center spaces, the athletes with their letter jackets, the quiet students who pressed themselves against the walls, and the troublemakers who seemed to enjoy making others uncomfortable. Maya recognized the patterns because they were the same at every school. What changed were the faces and names, but the groups remained constant. She had learned not to try too hard to fit in during her first weeks. It was better to watch and learn first. When lunchtime arrived, Maya bought a sandwich and a bottle of water from the cafeteria line. The large room buzzed with conversation and the sounds of chairs scraping against the floor. Every table seemed to have its own group of friends who had been eating together for months or years. Maya found an empty table near the windows and sat down with her back to the wall. This gave her a good view of the entire cafeteria while keeping her out of the main traffic flow. She pulled out a magazine she had been reading about martial arts techniques and placed it beside her sandwich. She had been training in martial arts since she was 12 years old. Her father believed it was important for her to know how to defend herself, especially with all the moving and new schools. Maya had earned belts in 3 different fighting styles, but she never talked about it with other students. It seemed to make them uncomfortable, or they thought she was showing off. As she ate and read, Maya became aware that someone was watching her. She glanced up to see a tall boy with sandy brown hair and expensive sneakers looking in her direction. He was sitting with 3 other students at a table that seemed to be in the prime location of the cafeteria. Other students kept walking over to talk to them, as if seeking permission or approval. The boy was Jake Morrison, though Maya didn't know his name yet. Jake had been the unofficial leader of his group since sophomore year. He was good-looking, came from a wealthy family, and played on the varsity basketball team. More importantly, he had discovered that he enjoyed having power over other students. He and his friends had made a habit of targeting anyone they thought was weak or different. Jake's girlfriend Ashley Brooks sat beside him, her blonde hair perfectly styled, and her outfit clearly expensive. She noticed Jake looking at the new girl and followed his gaze. "Who's that?" she asked, though her tone suggested she already didn't like the answer. "New girl," Jake replied, still studying Maya. "Looks like another weird loner. Did you see how she introduced herself in English? Just stood there like a robot." Tony Carter, who played linebacker on the football team, laughed. Military kid, right? Probably thinks she's tough. Tony was bigger than the other students and used his size to intimidate people. He enjoyed being Jake's enforcer. The fourth member of their group was Lisa Martinez. She had been friends with Ashley since middle school and followed her lead in most situations. Lisa was quieter than the others, but she went along with their activities because it kept her safe from becoming a target herself. Maya continued reading her magazine, unaware that she was being discussed. The article was about defensive techniques against multiple attackers. She found the technical details interesting, though she hoped she would never need to use such knowledge. The bell rang, signaling the end of lunch period. Maya packed up her things and joined the flow of students heading to afternoon classes. As she walked past Jake's table, she heard Ashley say loudly, "Some people have no sense of style at all." Maya's clothes were simple and practical. Her father's military salary didn't allow for expensive fashion, and she had learned that flashy outfits only drew unwanted attention at new schools. She wore clean jeans, a plain blue sweater, and comfortable shoes that she could run in if necessary. The afternoon classes were similar to the morning ones. Maya participated when required but mostly observed. She noticed which teachers seemed fair, which students looked approachable, and which areas of the school felt safer than others. When the final bell rang, Maya gathered her books and headed toward her locker. The hallways filled with students, eager to start their weekend. Maya moved against the flow of traffic, taking her time because she wasn't in a hurry to get anywhere. As she reached her locker and began putting books away, she heard footsteps approaching behind her. She didn't turn around, but she tensed slightly, ready to react if necessary. Jake Morrison walked past her locker, deliberately bumping into her shoulder hard enough to make her stumble. Her books scattered across the floor, and loose papers drifted in different directions. "Oh, sorry about that," Jake said with a smirk that showed he wasn't sorry at all. His friends laughed as they continued walking down the hallway. Maya knelt down and began collecting her books and papers. A few other students walked past without offering to help. This was how it started at every school. Someone would test her to see how she would react. Maya had learned that fighting back too early only made things worse, but she also knew that doing nothing would make her an easy target. She finished gathering her things and stood up slowly. Jake and his friends were already at the far end of the hallway, but Maya could still hear them laughing. She put her books in her locker and closed it quietly. Maya Rodriguez had dealt with bullies before. She knew this was just the beginning. Maya walked into Lincoln High School on Monday morning knowing that things would be different. The weekend had given her time to think about Jake Morrison and his friends. She had seen their type before at other schools. They were the kind of students who needed to make others feel small to feel big themselves. During her first period math class, Maya noticed Ashley Brooks whispering to two other girls while looking in her direction. The girls would look at Maya, then whisper some more, then giggle quietly. Maya kept her eyes on her worksheet and pretended not to notice, but she could feel their stares. At lunch, Maya sat at the same table by the windows. She had brought her lunch from home today because she wanted to avoid the cafeteria line where Jake's group might be waiting. As she unwrapped her sandwich, she heard voices getting louder at the popular table. "I heard her dad isn't even a real soldier," Ashley said, making sure her voice carried across the room. "He probably just fixes trucks or something boring like that." Tony Carter laughed. "Yeah, and she acts like she's so tough. Did you see those weird magazines she reads? Probably. Thinks she knows karate or something." Maya's jaw tightened, but she continued eating. Her father was a decorated sergeant who had served 3 tours overseas. He had earned medals for bravery and had saved lives. But Maya knew that defending him would only give Jake's group more ammunition to use against her. Lisa Martinez looked uncomfortable with the conversation, but she didn't speak up. She had learned that staying quiet was safer than defending someone Jake's group had decided to target. The rumors spread quickly through the school. By Wednesday, Maya heard students talking about how her family was poor, how her father was a fake soldier, and how she thought she was better than everyone else. None of it was true, but truth didn't matter when popular students decided to destroy someone's reputation. Maya tried to focus on her classes, but the constant whispers and stares made it difficult. In history class, when the teacher asked students to work in pairs, Maya was the only one left without a partner. The teacher had to assign her to work with someone who clearly didn't want to be paired with her. Thursday morning brought a new level of harassment. Maya was walking to her locker when Ashley Brooks appeared beside her, walking in step. Ashley was dressed in designer clothes and smelled like expensive perfume. "You know, Maya, you should really try harder to fit in here," Ashley said with fake sweetness. "I mean, your clothes are so basic, and that haircut looks like your mom did it herself." Maya kept walking without responding. She had learned that engaging with bullies only encouraged them to continue. "I'm just trying to help you," Ashley continued. "Maybe if you dressed better and stopped acting so weird, people might actually like you." When Maya still didn't respond, Ashley's tone changed. "Of course, some people are just naturally losers. Maybe that's your problem." Maya reached her locker and began working the combination. Ashley stood there for a moment, waiting for a reaction, then walked away when she realized Maya wasn't going to take the bait. Friday was worse. Maya was carrying her lunch tray across the cafeteria when Ashley suddenly stood up from her table and stepped directly into Maya's path. Maya tried to step around her, but Ashley moved to block her again. "Oops, sorry," Ashley said with a smirk, then deliberately bumped into Maya's tray. Hot coffee splashed across the front of Maya's white sweater, the only nice top she owned. The brown liquid soaked through the fabric and dripped onto her jeans. Several students nearby laughed and pointed. Maya looked down at her ruined sweater, then back at Ashley, who was smiling with satisfaction. Maya's hands tightened into fists for just a moment, then relaxed. "Accidents happen," Maya said quietly, then walked to the bathroom to clean up as best she could. Ashley watched her go, disappointed that she hadn't gotten a bigger reaction. "What a freak," she announced to her friends. "Doesn't even get mad when someone ruins her clothes." The following week, the harassment became more organized. Tony Carter started a new game where he would walk slowly in front of Maya between classes, making her late. When she tried to go around him, he would step sideways to block her path again. "Sorry, didn't see you there," he would say each time, grinning at his friends who watched from nearby. Maya missed the beginning of 3 different classes because of Tony's blocking game. 2 teachers gave her warnings about being late, even though she tried to leave earlier to account for the delays. Jake Morrison began leaving nasty notes in Maya's locker. Someone had given him her combination, probably a student who worked in the office. The notes called her names and told her she didn't belong at Lincoln High. Maya threw them away without reading them completely, but their existence bothered her more than she wanted to admit. Lisa Martinez felt guilty about what her friends were doing, but she was too scared to speak up. She had been a target herself in middle school before Ashley had taken her into their group. She knew how cruel Jake and Ashley could be, and she didn't want to become their victim again. The worst incident happened on a Wednesday afternoon. Maya was walking to her last class when she felt someone grab her backpack from behind. Jake Morrison yanked it off her shoulders so hard that the straps cut into her arms. "Let's see what the weird girl carries around," Jake announced, unzipping Maya's bag. Maya stepped forward to take her bag back, but Tony Carter moved to block her path. Jake dumped the contents of her backpack onto the hallway floor. Books, papers, pens, and personal items scattered in all directions. Other students stopped to watch, but no one offered to help. Some pulled out their phones to record what was happening. Among the items that fell out were family photos that Maya kept in a protective folder. One photo showed her father in his military uniform, standing proud with his unit. Another showed Maya and her father at a martial arts tournament where she had won first place. Jake picked up the photo of her father and held it up for everyone to see. "Look at this," he said loudly. Maya's daddy playing dress-up soldier. Maya's face flushed red with anger, but she kept her voice steady. "Give me my things back." "What are you going to do if I don't?" Jake asked, enjoying the attention he was getting from the crowd. Maya looked around at all the faces watching her. Some students looked entertained by the drama. Others looked uncomfortable, but unwilling to intervene. A few looked sympathetic, but scared to get involved. "Please," Maya said quietly. Just give me my things. Jake laughed and tossed the photo back onto the pile of scattered belongings. There you go, freak. Maybe next time you'll think twice about being so weird. Maya knelt down and began collecting her things while Jake and his friends walked away, high-fiving each other. The crowd dispersed as the excitement ended, leaving Maya alone on the floor gathering her scattered belongings. As she picked up the photo of her father, Maya felt something change inside her. She had been patient, hoping the bullies would get bored and move on to someone else. But they were getting worse, not better. And now they were attacking her family, the thing that mattered most to her. Maya carefully placed the photo back in its protective folder and finished collecting her things. She was 15 minutes late to her last class, earning another warning from the teacher. That evening, Maya sat in her room looking at the photo of her father. He had taught her to be strong, to defend herself, and to never let anyone make her feel ashamed of who she was. But he had also taught her to choose her battles carefully and to avoid fighting unless she had no other choice. Maya was beginning to think she might not have any other choice much longer. Maya had been at Lincoln High School for 3 weeks now. Each day brought new challenges from Jake Morrison and his friends. They seemed to think of it as a game, seeing how far they could push her before she broke. What they didn't understand was that Maya Rodriguez came from a family of fighters, and she had been trained not to break easily. On Thursday afternoon, Maya was walking to her locker after her last class when she noticed Jake, Ashley, Tony, and Lisa waiting near the exit doors. They were trying to look casual, but Maya could tell they were watching for her. She had learned to read body language during her years of moving from school to school. Maya decided to take a different route to avoid them. She walked toward the side exit that led to the student parking lot. Her father was picking her up today because her bike had a flat tire. She checked her phone and saw a text message saying he would be 15 minutes late. The parking lot was nearly empty. Most students had already left for the day, and the few remaining cars belonged to teachers who stayed late for meetings or students who had after-school activities. Maya found a quiet spot near the fence where she could wait without being noticed. She pulled out a book and started reading, trying to ignore the cold wind that was picking up. The sky was gray and it looked like rain was coming. Maya hoped her father would arrive before the weather got worse. 5 minutes later, she heard footsteps approaching. Maya looked up to see Jake Morrison walking toward her with his 3 friends, following behind. They had found her after all. Well, 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 Jake said with a smile that wasn't friendly. Look who's hiding out here all alone. Maya closed her book and stood up. She kept her back to the fence so no one could approach her from behind. This was something her father had taught her about situational awareness. I'm not hiding, Maya said calmly. I'm waiting for my ride. Ashley Brooks stepped forward, her phone already in her hand. We thought we should have a little talk with you, Maya. You've been at our school for 3 weeks now and you still don't seem to understand how things work here. Tony Carter moved to Maya's left side while Lisa Martinez stayed back, looking uncomfortable with the whole situation. Maya noticed their positions and calculated the distances between them. Her father had taught her to always be aware of multiple threats. Here's the thing, Jake said, moving closer. Some people belong at Lincoln High and some people don't. You're one of the people who don't belong. Maya looked at each of them in turn. Jake was tall and athletic, but his movements showed he had never been in a real fight. Tony was bigger and stronger, but he was slow and relied on his size to intimidate people. Ashley was recording everything on her phone, probably planning to post it online later. Lisa kept looking around nervously, as if she wanted to be anywhere else. I'm not bothering anyone, Maya said. I just want to go to school and be left alone. But that's the problem, Ashley said, still recording. You are bothering people. You're bothering us. Walking around here like you're better than everyone, else reading those weird books, acting all tough and mysterious. I don't act tough, Maya replied. I just mind my own business. Jake laughed. Yeah, right. I bet you think you're some kind of fighter because your daddy taught you a few moves. Well, let me tell you something, new girl. This isn't the army. This is high school and here I'm in charge. Maya felt her heart rate increase slightly, but she kept her breathing steady. Her father had taught her that staying calm was the most important thing in any confrontation. Panic led to mistakes, and mistakes led to getting hurt. "I don't want any trouble," Maya said. "Just leave me alone." "Too late for that," Tony said, cracking his knuckles. "You should have thought about that before you came to our school." Maya noticed that Lisa had moved even further back, clearly not wanting to be part of whatever was about to happen. Ashley kept recording, excited to capture Maya's humiliation on video. Jake stepped closer, now only a few feet away from Maya. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to apologize for being such a freak. Then you're going to promise to stay away from us and our friends. And maybe, if you're lucky, we'll let you finish the school year without making your life completely miserable." Maya looked at him steadily. "And if I don't? Then we'll make sure everyone at school knows exactly what kind of person you really are," Ashley said, waving her phone. "This video will be all over social media in 5 minutes." Maya realized they had planned this carefully. The parking lot was isolated, with no teachers or security guards around. They had her outnumbered, 4-1, and they were recording everything, planning to use it to embarrass her in front of the entire school. But Jake Morrison and his friends had made a serious mistake. They thought Maya was just another quiet kid they could push around. They didn't know about the hours she had spent training with her father. They didn't know about the discipline she had learned through years of martial arts. And they didn't know that her calm exterior hid a fighter who had been trained to handle exactly this kind of situation. "I'm not going to apologize," Maya said quietly. "And I'm not going to promise you anything." Jake's face darkened with anger. Wrong answer. He reached out and grabbed Maya's backpack, trying to pull it off her shoulders. But Maya was ready for him. She stepped back and twisted away, keeping hold of her bag. "Give me that!" Jake demanded, grabbing for the backpack again. This time he got a better grip and yanked hard. The straps cut into Maya's shoulders, but she held on. Jake pulled harder, and Maya was forced to step forward to keep her balance. "Let go of my bag," Maya said, her voice still calm but with a new edge to it. "Make me," Jake replied, pulling even harder. Maya felt the straps starting to tear. Inside her backpack were her books, her homework, her father's letters from overseas, and the family photos that meant everything to her. These weren't just possessions to her. They were connections to her family and her past. "Let go," Maya warned one more time. Jake laughed and gave the backpack one final violent yank. The strap broke completely, and Maya's belongings spilled across the wet pavement of the parking lot. Books landed in puddles, papers scattered in the wind, and her father's letters got soaked with dirty water. But the worst part was what happened to her family photos. The protective folder opened when it hit the ground, and the pictures of her father in uniform, her mother before she died, and Maya's martial arts achievements spread across the parking lot like trash. Jake picked up one of the photos, the one showing Maya's father in his military dress uniform receiving a medal for valor. He held it up for Ashley's camera to see. "Look at this," Jake said mockingly. "Maya's daddy playing soldier. I bet he's never even been in a real fight." Maya felt something snap inside her. Her father had served 3 tours of duty in combat zones. He had saved lives and earned his medals through courage and sacrifice. He was a hero, and this spoiled rich kid was treating his photo like garbage. "Put that down," Maya said, and for the first time, her voice carried real threat. Jake heard the change in her tone, but he was too caught up in his performance to pay attention to the warning. He waved the photo in the air, grinning at his friends. "What are you going to do about it, army brat? Cry to your fake soldier daddy?" Maya took a step forward. Her entire body language changed. Her shoulders squared, her stance widened, and her hands moved into position. Years of training had taught her to recognize the moment when talking was over and action was necessary. "Last chance," Maya said, her voice deadly quiet. "Put down the photo and walk away." Jake looked at her and laughed. "You think you scare me? You're just a scrawny little girl who watches too many movies." He crumpled the photo in his fist and tossed it into a nearby puddle. Maya watched her father's picture disappear under the dirty water, and something inside her went cold and hard. She had given them every opportunity to stop. She had tried to avoid this confrontation. She had been patient and reasonable and calm. But they had gone too far. They had attacked her family's honor, and that was something Maya Rodriguez would never allow. "You just made a big mistake," Maya said, her voice so quiet that Jake had to lean forward to hear her. "Yeah?" Jake said, stepping closer. "What are you going to do about it?" Maya looked at Jake Morrison, then at Tony Carter, who was moving to flank her, then at Ashley, who was still recording everything. She calculated angles, distances, and timing. She identified their weaknesses and planned her response. Her father had taught her that sometimes talking wasn't enough. Sometimes you had to fight. And when you fought to win. Maya Rodriguez was done talking. Jake Morrison had no idea what he was about to face. He had spent 3 weeks pushing Maya Rodriguez, testing her limits, waiting for her to break down and cry like other kids he had bullied. But Maya wasn't like other kids. She was the daughter of a combat veteran who had trained her since she was 12 years old. Maya stood perfectly still for a moment, watching her father's photo sink into the dirty puddle. The wind picked up her scattered papers and blew them across the parking lot. Her books lay open in the rain, their pages getting soaked. Everything that mattered to her was being destroyed, and Jake Morrison was laughing about it. "What's wrong, army brat?" Jake taunted, stepping closer to Maya. "Going to cry now? Going to run home to Daddy?" Ashley kept her phone camera pointed at Maya, excited to capture her breakdown. Tony Carter moved to Maya's right side, ready to grab her if she tried to run. Lisa Martinez stayed back, looking more and more uncomfortable with what was happening. Maya raised her head and looked directly at Jake. Her dark eyes were calm and cold. When she spoke, her voice was quiet but carried a tone that made Jake's smile fade slightly. "You should have walked away when I gave you the chance." Jake felt a small chill run down his spine, but he pushed the feeling aside. She was just one girl, and he had 3 friends with him. Big talk from someone who's about to get taught a lesson. He reached out to grab Maya's shoulder, intending to push her against the fence again. It was the same move he had used on dozens of other students over the years. Jake Morrison had never met anyone who could fight back. Maya saw his hand coming toward her in what felt like slow motion. Years of training kicked in automatically. Her father had taught her that when someone attacks you, you don't think about it. You react with muscle memory and training. As Jake's hand touched her shoulder, Maya moved. She grabbed his wrist with both hands, stepped to the side, and twisted. Jake's arm bent in a direction it wasn't supposed to go, and he cried out in pain and surprise. Maya used Jake's own forward momentum against him. She pulled on his twisted arm while sweeping his legs with her foot. Jake Morrison, who had been standing confidently just seconds before, found himself flying through the air. He hit the wet pavement hard, landing on his back with a splash. The impact knocked the wind out of his lungs, and he lay there gasping, like a fish out of water. The entire sequence took less than 3 seconds. Tony Carter stared in shock for a moment. Then anger took over. "You little freak," he shouted, charging at Maya with his fists raised. Tony was bigger and stronger than Jake, but he was also slower and less coordinated. He came at Maya like a bull, putting all his weight behind a wild punch aimed at her head. Maya waited until the last second, then stepped to the side. Tony's punch missed her by inches, and his momentum carried him forward. Maya grabbed his arm as he passed by her and helped him continue in the direction he was already going. Tony stumbled past Maya and crashed into a parked car. The impact set off the car's alarm, and loud honking filled the parking lot. Tony bounced off the car's hood and fell to the ground, dazed and confused. Ashley Brooks screamed in shock. She had expected to film Maya being beaten up, not watch her 2 strongest friends get defeated in seconds. Her phone shook in her hands as she tried to keep recording. "How did you do that?" Ashley shouted. "That's impossible." Maya turned to look at Ashley, who was still holding up her phone. "You wanted to record this? Keep recording." Ashley saw something in Maya's eyes that made her take a step backward. This wasn't the quiet, shy girl she had been bullying for 3 weeks. This was someone completely different. Jake Morrison was trying to get back to his feet, clutching his sore wrist. His expensive clothes were covered in mud and water from the parking lot. His perfect hair was messed up, and his face was red with embarrassment and pain. "This isn't over," Jake gasped, still trying to catch his breath. "You can't take all of us." Maya looked at him calmly. "I just did." Tony Carter was also getting up, using the car he had crashed into for support. The car alarm was still honking loudly, but Tony ignored it. His shoulder hurt from hitting the car, and he was angry and confused. "You got lucky," Tony growled, moving toward Maya again. "That won't happen twice." Maya shook her head. "You should stay down." But Tony wasn't smart enough to listen. He came at Maya again, this time trying to tackle her around the waist. Maya waited for him to get close, then dropped low and swept both of his legs. Tony went down hard for the second time, landing face first in a puddle. When he lifted his head, mud was dripping from his nose and mouth. The car alarm finally stopped, leaving the parking lot in sudden silence. Ashley dropped her phone in shock. She had filmed everything, but she couldn't believe what she was seeing. Jake Morrison and Tony Carter, the two toughest guys at Lincoln High School, were both lying on the ground while Maya Rodriguez stood over them without even breathing hard. "This has to be fake," Ashley whispered. "This can't be real." Maya walked over and picked up her father's photo from the puddle. The water had damaged it, but the image was still visible. She looked at Jake, who was finally managing to stand, up on shaky legs. "You owe me a new photo," Maya said quietly. Jake's face was pale and his hands were trembling. He had never been in a real fight before, and he definitely had never lost one so completely. All his confidence was gone, replaced by fear and confusion. "How?" was all Jake could manage to say. "My father taught me," Maya replied, carefully placing the wet photo in her pocket. "He said there might come a time when I would need to defend myself." He was right. Tony Carter was still on the ground, spitting mud out of his mouth. He looked up at Maya with a mixture of fear and respect. He had never seen anyone move like that. Lisa Martinez had been silent during the entire confrontation, pressed against the school building with her eyes wide. She had known Jake and his friends were bullies, but she had never seen them actually get beaten before. She didn't know whether to feel scared or relieved. Ashley finally found her voice. "You're crazy. You attacked us. We're going to tell everyone what you did." Maya looked at Ashley's phone, which was still recording from where it had fallen on the ground. "Go ahead. Show everyone the video. Show them how Jake grabbed me first. Show them how Tony attacked me. Show them how I defended myself." Ashley realized that the video she had planned to use to humiliate Maya would actually prove that Maya had been defending herself. The camera had captured Jake grabbing Maya's backpack, dumping her belongings, and then trying to grab her physically. "Jake," Morrison slowly backed away from Maya, still holding his hurt wrist. He had learned something important in the last few minutes. Maya Rodriguez wasn't the weak target he had thought she was. She was dangerous. "This isn't over," Jake said again, but his voice lacked conviction. Maya stood in the middle of the parking lot, surrounded by her scattered belongings. Her books were soaked, her papers were blowing away, and her backpack was broken. But she was standing tall, and her three tormentors were the ones who looked defeated. "Yes, it is," Maya said calmly. "It's over because you're going to leave me, alone from now on. All of you." Jake looked at Tony, who was finally getting to his feet. He looked at Ashley, who was staring at Maya like she had never seen her before. He looked at Lisa, who was still pressed against the building. Then Jake Morrison did something he had never done before in his life. He walked away from a fight without getting the last word. Tony followed him, limping slightly and covered in mud. Ashley grabbed her phone and hurried after them, looking back at Maya with a mixture of fear and confusion. Only Lisa Martinez remained, still standing by the building. She looked at Maya for a long moment, then walked over and began helping to collect the scattered books and papers. "Thank you," Maya said quietly. Lisa nodded but didn't say anything. She had seen what Maya was capable of, and she was smart enough to know which side she wanted to be on. As they gathered up Maya's belongings, more students began to appear in the parking lot. Word was already spreading through the school that something big had happened. By tomorrow, everyone at Lincoln High would know that Maya Rodriguez was not someone to mess with. Maya's father arrived 10 minutes later to find his daughter waiting calmly by the fence, her books and papers neatly organized despite being wet. She got into the car and buckled her seatbelt. "How was school today?" he asked, as he always did. Maya looked at her reflection in the passenger window and smiled slightly. "It was interesting, Dad. I think things are going to be different now." Maya Rodriguez walked into Lincoln High School on Friday morning to find everything had changed. Students stopped talking when she passed by in the hallways. Some stared at her with curiosity, others with respect, and a few with fear. Word about what had happened in the parking lot had spread through the entire school overnight. The video Ashley had recorded was everywhere. Students had shared it on social media, sent it through text messages, and shown it to their friends. But instead of showing Maya being humiliated like Ashley had planned, the video showed her defending herself against 3 attackers. It showed Jake Morrison grabbing her first, Tony Carter charging at her, and Maya handling both of them with skill and control. Maya's first class was English with Mrs. Patterson. As she walked into the room, conversations stopped and heads turned. Maya took her usual seat and opened her textbook, pretending not to notice the attention. "Is it true?" whispered Kelly Davis, a girl who sat behind Maya. "Did you really beat up Jake Morrison?" Maya turned around to face Kelly. "I defended myself when they attacked me." "But how did you learn to fight like that?" asked another student, Marcus Thompson. "That was incredible." "My father taught me," Maya replied simply. "He said I might need to defend myself someday." Mrs. Patterson called for attention and started the lesson, but Maya could tell that students were still whispering about her. She noticed that Jake Morrison's seat was empty. He hadn't come to school today. During lunch, Maya sat at her usual table by the windows, but instead of eating alone, she found herself joined by several students who had never spoken to her before. "That was amazing what you did yesterday," said Carlos Rivera, a junior who had been one of Jake's targets last semester. "Jake and his friends have been bullying people for years. Nobody ever stood up to them before." "I didn't want to fight," Maya said. "I just wanted them to leave me alone." "Well, you definitely got their attention," laughed Sarah Kim, a girl from Maya's math class. "Did you see Jake's face when he got up? I've never seen him look so scared." More students approached Maya's table throughout lunch. Many of them were kids who had been bullied by Jake's group in the past. They thanked Maya for standing up to them and shared stories about their own experiences. "Jake pushed me down the stairs last year," said a freshman named Danny Martinez. "I was too scared to tell anyone because I thought he would do worse things to me. Ashley spread rumors about me all through sophomore year," added Jennifer Walsh. "She made my life miserable for months." Maya listened to their stories and realized how many students had suffered because of Jake Morrison and his friends. She felt sorry for them, but she also felt proud that she had finally stopped the bullying. Lisa Martinez appeared at Maya's table during the last few minutes of lunch. She looked nervous and kept glancing around to make sure Ashley wasn't watching. "Can I talk to you?" Lisa asked quietly. Maya nodded and Lisa sat down across from her. "I want to apologize," Lisa said, speaking fast like she was afraid she might lose her courage. "I should have helped you when Jake and Ashley were being mean to you. I should have told them to stop." "Why didn't you?" Maya asked, though her tone wasn't angry. Lisa looked down at her hands. "Because I was scared. Jake and Ashley used to pick on me too back in middle school. When they invited me to be their friend, I thought I was safe, but I was really just another bully." Maya studied Lisa's face and saw that she was genuinely sorry. "What are you going to do now?" "I'm not hanging out with them anymore," Lisa said firmly. "I don't want to be that kind of person, and I want to help if any of their other victims want to report what happened to them." Maya smiled, the first real smile she had given to a classmate since arriving at Lincoln High. "I think that's a good idea." By the end of the day, Maya had learned that Jake Morrison, Tony Carter, and Ashley Brooks had all been called to the principal's office. Security cameras in the parking lot had recorded the entire incident, and the video Ashley had taken proved that Maya had been defending herself. Principal Williams called Maya to his office during her last period. Maya was nervous, wondering if she was in trouble despite being the victim. "Sit down, Maya," Principal Williams said kindly. He was an older man with gray hair and a calm manner. "I want to talk to you about what happened yesterday." Maya sat in the chair across from his desk and waited for him to continue. "First, I want you to know that you're not in any trouble," the principal said. "The security footage and the video clearly show that you were defending yourself after being attacked." Maya felt relief wash over her. However, Principal Williams continued, "I am concerned about the level of bullying that has been happening in this school. Several students have come forward today to report incidents involving Jake Morrison and his friends. It seems this has been going on for a long time." "Yes, sir," Maya said. "They told me I didn't belong here and tried to make me leave." Principal Williams nodded. "Jake, Tony, and Ashley have been suspended for a week. When they return, they'll be on probation. If there are any more incidents, they'll face expulsion." Maya was surprised. She had expected maybe a detention, not suspensions. "We're also starting a new anti-bullying program," the principal added. "Several students suggested that you might be willing to help with it. They said you handled a difficult situation with remarkable self-control." "What kind of help?" Maya asked. "We'd like you to help teach other students about conflict resolution and self-defense, not fighting, but how to handle bullying situations and protect themselves when necessary." Maya thought about it for a moment. "I'd like to talk to my father first, but yes, I think I'd like to help." Principal Williams smiled. "Excellent. We'll set up a meeting with you and your father next week." As Maya left the principal's office, she felt like a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. For the first time since arriving at Lincoln High, she felt like she might actually belong here. Over the weekend, Maya's father helped her set up a new phone number and social media accounts because her old ones had been flooded with messages from students at school. Some were congratulatory, others were requests for friendship, and a few were interview requests from local news stations who had heard about the incident. "I'm proud of you," Sergeant Rodriguez told his daughter as they worked on her computer. "You tried to avoid the fight. You used only the force necessary to defend yourself, and you didn't hurt anyone more than you had to." "I was scared I might get in trouble for fighting at school," Maya admitted. "Sometimes fighting is necessary," her father said. "But you did everything right. You gave them chances to walk away, you defended yourself when attacked, and you stopped when the threat was over. That's exactly what I taught you." Monday morning brought a completely different experience for Maya. Students smiled and waved to her in the hallways. Teachers who had barely noticed her before made efforts to include her in class discussions. And most importantly, the quiet students who had been hiding in the shadows began to emerge. Maya found herself surrounded by new friends at lunch. Carlos Rivera introduced her to the school's martial arts club, which had only 3 members, but was eager to grow. Sarah Kim asked her to join the math team. Danny Martinez and several other former victims of bullying formed a support group that met in the library. Jake Morrison returned to school the following week, but he was a changed person. His suspension had given him time to think about his behavior, and facing consequences for his actions had been a wake-up call. He avoided Maya and stopped bothering other students. His popularity had disappeared overnight when people realized he wasn't as tough as he had pretended to be. Tony Carter also kept a low profile when he returned. The football coach had heard about the parking lot incident and made it clear that any more bullying would result in Tony being kicked off the team. Ashley Brooks had the hardest time adjusting to the new reality. She had built her identity around being popular and feared, and now other students ignored her or actively avoided her. She ate lunch alone and struggled to find anyone willing to be her friend. A month after the parking lot incident, Maya was elected to the student council. Her campaign promise was simple: to make Lincoln High a place where every student felt safe and welcome. She won by the largest margin in the school's history. Maya started a peer mentoring program for new students, ensuring that no one would have to face what she had experienced. She worked with the administration to create better reporting systems for bullying and helped train teachers to recognize the warning signs. The martial arts club grew from 3 members to over 20. Maya taught basic self-defense techniques, but more importantly, she taught students about confidence, discipline, and when to fight versus when to walk away. By the end of the school year, Lincoln High School had been transformed. Bullying incidents dropped to almost zero. Students felt safer reporting problems, and the school's culture shifted from one where the strong picked on the weak to one where everyone looked out for each other. Maya Rodriguez had arrived at Lincoln High as a quiet military kid who just wanted to fit in. She was finishing the year as a respected leader who had changed the entire school for the better. Jake Morrison and his friends had made the grave error of picking on someone they thought was weak. Instead, they had awakened a fighter who fought not just for herself,